You're listening to another ambitious entrepreneur.network.com podcast, the voice for entrepreneurs and small business. Now, onto the show.
Welcome to Industry Thought Leader Podcast. Stand out, be heard, influence. Want to influence real change with your message while become known as an authority in your field? Industry Thought Leader Podcast will show you how. Now, over to your host, Annemarie Cross.
And welcome back to another episode of Industry Thought Leader Podcast, brought to you by Industry Thought Leader Academy. Stand out, be heard, and influence. I'm your host, Annemarie Cross, the podcasting queen. Now, my guest today says, good leaders develop ideas, great leaders develop people, and the best leaders, well, they develop new leaders. And joining me on today's show is Bobby Umar. Bobby is an inspirational speaker. He's a coach who champions authentic connection and heart-based leadership. He is an Inc. magazine top 100 leadership speaker. He's also spoken at TEDx 5 times, and with over 500,000 social media followers, Bobby is a recognized influencer and thought leader in networking, social media, and personal branding. Important topics where we're going to dive into today. And Bobby is specifically going to share some key aspects to invest in and build a stronger thought leader personal brand. Must-do speaker tips as a way to build a side hustle if you want to as a professional speaker, as well as signature moves to optimize your authentic networking follow-up. All very, very important as you're building that thought leadership. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Annemarie. I'm delighted to be here.
Tell us a little bit of your backstory, if you will, the areas of, as we said, networking, social media, personal branding. How did you get into those areas? And obviously you've developed a real passion and now expertise and sharing that with people all over the globe. But how did you come across those particular areas and develop your skills in them?
Yeah, well, I think originally when I launched my career as a professional speaker about 15 years ago, I'd had several careers. So I had a career in engineering, one in the performing arts, another one in brand marketing. And I could never really fit. I felt kind of lost. I felt stuck. I felt unfulfilled. And that eventually became my why statement. But when I launched my speaking career and I dove my personal brand, I came up with the idea that, hey, you know what? Here's certain paths that'll work for me. And I decided to become the speaker thing screamed out at me in terms of my values, my interests, my skills, my passions. And what I can tell you that happened was initially, I started out as a leadership speaker or a soft skill development speaker. And then the first thing that took off as one of my expertise was networking. I kept getting called to talk about networking, building relationships, doing live networking sessions, networking in the office place, networking with colleagues, networking to build leads. And it became my go-to signature talk. And people want to know how to follow up, how to engage, how to start conversations, how to close conversations. So that became the first part of my expertise. Then a few years into doing a keynote on networking, I talked about the idea of your brand, which is, when you meet somebody, what is the memory? What is the experience? What is your promise you deliver to that person? And I said, that's your personal brand. And when I said that, it completely resonated and people went bananas for that idea. Tell me more about this personal brand thing. How does it work with networking? And pretty soon I was talking about personal branding all the time. And soon personal branding became my second thing I would talk the most about. So networking and then personal branding. And then when I did my first of my 5 TEDx talks, I realized that social media was here to stay. And I was like, you know what, let me invest in social media. One of my friends had told me years ago, Bobby, if you have a voice and a message for the world, you should be on all the social medias, including Twitter, which is one I had avoided. And so I said, fine, I launched a Facebook page, a newsletter, my Twitter strategy, and I started pumping content out there. And within 6 months, I'm doing that on Twitter. I had about 5,000 followers. And then someone said, Bobby, we love what you talk about. Can you come in and do a session on leadership and voluntary engagement? I was like, yeah, totally. And I was like, wow, I just got a professional speaking gig off of Twitter. Like, wow. And I was amazed, right? This is great. Social media, man, I'm investing. And so I decided to invest in social media even further. And I developed different ways to build and so on. On Twitter, particularly when I hit 100,000 followers, I started to realize, okay, I'm building quite a bit of influence here. This is great. I want to do this across all platforms. And that within 2 years of doing that, I would say that I started getting a lot of speaking gigs around social media. How do you engage? How do you build? How do you follow? How do you create content, community? And that became my third area of expertise, which is social media and digital influence. And so they kind of all came along the way. And one of the things that I found is that as I built a brand around what I call the power of connection, these three expertise fit in a nice little triangle. Personal branding is the power of connection with the self. Networking and building relationships is connection with others. And then digital influence and social media is connection with the world. And so everything
Yes.
relates to my whole idea of the power of connection.
Yeah. What I love about what you've just shared in your story, and I want to identify, and just in case people have missed this, and this is often what happens, you're there doing the work, you're leveraging it, and you're finding out ways to leverage and get your message out there and connect. And people often will notice because you're probably using skills that you've developed and enhancing it, and even the natural skills and strengths too. And people will often recognize in you what you might be just doing naturally, and then reaching out and saying, hey, we want to learn more about what you're doing. And sometimes what people do is they try and do that the other way. They try and position themselves, but they have not yet really built that credibility.
Right.
When you're thinking about those different areas, what was happening for you at the time that you suddenly realized this actually fits together? Because why I ask is so many people do have expertise across different areas, but they're not yet seeing how they can all combine. Because you, I'd imagine, offer such a wealth and depth of experience and knowledge to share with clients and your audience because of the fact that you're drawing on all of these experiences and it's relevant and it supports them the best way. What were some of the ahas that you had that you can share with others today?
Well, I think a big aha is the fact that we all wear multiple hats and we all have different aspects of our brand. So one person is a dancer, but they're also into statistics. For me, I was in performing arts, but I was also an engineer and I was also a speaker. And so how do these things all work together? What I've learned is that everything about your brand and your thought leadership brand can fit under the brand of you. It's just how you share the story and how you put it together. So I've worked on my brand in the sense that everything I talk about, from my why statement to the power of connection, fits with everything I do, not just as a professional speaker, coach, and author, but also it fits as a father, as a son, as a friend. Everything I do around my brand it's all Bobby. So when you see me on Twitter, LinkedIn, wherever I am, it's the same Bobby. There's slight differences in terms of how I engage my target audience, but it's the same me. I don't have 3 different Instagram profiles. I don't have 2 different Twitter profiles. I don't have 2 different LinkedIn, profiles. It's all me, and I've been able to learn to merge that really well, and also help others to do that as well. And I tell them, like, you know what, you can completely do both. If you are into yoga, but you're also into cybersecurity, go for it. Make that your story. It's nothing wrong with that. I think it's totally fine. So for me, that was a big aha moment for me as I went through that. The second thing is, you were right. As I went through my whole process, everything evolved. I'm always learning, getting feedback, and evolving, growing. So things over the years have changed. My target, my why statement, my branding, everything has always changed and evolved. The one I've had now has been the same for a couple of years, but it might evolve again. And so the other big aha thing is to constantly evolve and grow and change with whatever you're doing. I mean, if you think about speaking, for example, I was a networking expert, and I still am. But at the time, I was networking at live events and in the workplace. I wasn't talking about how to network online. But eventually, I had to learn how to do it and teach people that, no, if you want to be a good networker, you have to learn to network online too. And so now here's how you network with Twitter. Here's how you network with LinkedIn. Here's how you network with Facebook. And so I had to evolve and grow as a leader and as a speaker. So I think that's another big thing that's shifted over the years for me.
Yes, we're going to dive in a bit deeper around the speaking, because you'll be able to add value in that. But building that thought leadership brand across multiple platforms. You said you started Twitter, all of a sudden you got a speaking gig from that and thought, wow, okay, imagine if I do that across multiple platforms.
Right.
What I often will see people do is they'll either neglect a particular platform. Hopefully we've given them some reasons why maybe they should start to expand if they haven't haven't already, but what are some steps that you perhaps have done that we don't end up stretching ourselves too thin and then none of the platforms are building? Because as business owners, we can sometimes get a little bit burnt out because we are stretching ourselves too thin. What are some strategies that you've done that enabled you to build, your profile across multiple platforms now? Did you do them one at a time? Did you have a team behind you? What were some of
Yeah,
those?
that's a good question. I mean, there's lots of things. So, I mean, one is, having a clear objective and brand and target and voice for what you're doing. So, when I first started out, it was basically LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. That was the
Yeah.
three that I did. Now, some people only do one. And the thing is, if you don't have the time or the resources, and you want to focus on one, pick the one where your audience and your objectives align, right? But I usually try to do three. I think three is great. So I focus on the three. The one I neglected at first was Instagram. So, but now like I'm on Instagram, that's why I'm not trying to do that one.
Yeah.
So that's one. The second thing to keep in mind is integration. So there are ways to integrate content and methodologies across all the platforms. Now it's different. Like what I post on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook are different, but there are things that I post that are the same. So when I make a video, for example, I will. So when I do my own live streams, I have a Power Connection live stream. I
Yeah.
broadcast across all three platforms. It's the same. Now, if I make a video though, I'll do a video on LinkedIn usually first, and then I'll repurpose that content for Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I'll probably
Yeah.
say different things about them, different hashtags, but I will be able to repurpose that content. So for me, that integration and that leveraging across is, I think, really, really important as well.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then I think the other thing to keep in mind is, yeah, you can certainly find ways to get help. I definitely found help from virtual assistants to automate or share certain contents that rely on my brand. I had to train them. I spent a lot of time training them to make sure here's what my brand is, here's what I want to share. Can you help me with that? I've also used different software tools to help me integrate some of the like a perfect example is I use a combination of Meet Edgar and Up Content
Mm.
to to find sophisticated ways to create content that aligns with what me and my audience wants. So, for
Yeah.
example, I've created a funnel just for personal branding content,
Mm.
and I've had to hone it over about a year or so. But now it's very good. Like it definitely gives me good 2 or 3 articles every day that I'm posting automatically across Twitter, because Twitter is a good place for automated content.
Yes.
So I'm able to use that, and I may have a virtual assistant help me with other stuff too. So I think all those three things that I'm doing is try to be more effective across the platforms. And then the last thing I will say is that if you don't have the resources or you want to figure out where to go, like most people burn out because they try too much. So now
Mm.
you get to a point where if you work with a coach, you work with someone who can clearly understand how much time you have, what your target is, and also what is your overall social media savvy and
Mm.
fear and apprehensions, around video content, posting. Like I know some people are still afraid to even post one thing
Yeah.
on even Facebook. And
Yeah.
so you have to understand
Put it out there, isn't
each
it?
person's different, right? And so you have to understand that and work with people on what works best for them,
Yeah.
because and then also know where you shouldn't be. Like, in the beginning I was trying everything. So when Vine came, I tried it. When Instagram came, I tried YouTube, I tried it. But now, everyone's raving about TikTok. At this point, I don't need it.
Mm.
Snapchat, I don't need it. But I've learned now to know what I don't need and
Yes.
what I do want. And I think a lot of people also struggle with that because they're jumping on to the bandwagon each time
Yeah.
with for the new hot thing. But again, that's not always the best way to go.
Yeah. And I love the way that you really started, defining that personal brand and where you really want to deliver that message. Because often what people will do is they might have a strategy about what they're posting, but because it's not focused and their message is too thin, they're not positioning that thought leadership, that area of expertise. So that's something to consider too. Let's do a swap. Let's talk about signature moves to optimize your authentic networking follow up, because posting content, that's fantastic. Sharing thought leadership, sharing other people's content into that particular area. You are positioning your thought leadership, but also the connections that you are built. And I know for a long time I've neglected to do that to the degree now that I'm really focusing on,
Mhm.
reaching out, DMing, using those tools to also
Mhm.
build relationships. What are some of the things that you're doing that you see is working really well to enhance that online relationship building?
There's a couple things. So one is understand the spectrum between online and offline. So live to online. So when I meet someone at an event, let's say like there's a LinkedIn local in Toronto at February 26th. I'll meet someone there. I feel like it's a good connection, I will add them on LinkedIn, and then I'll follow up with a message. But when you meet somebody or you get their business card, what are you going to do with these things? There's got to be some sort of follow up. Not following up renders networking useless. What's the point of getting their card or adding them on LinkedIn if you're not going to do anything with it? So for me, one of the things I do is one of my signature moves is the follow up after meeting them live. Because what you want to do is when you meet someone live, you want to get them connected online, and then eventually get them to that one-on-one meeting in person, whether it's a Zoom call or whether it's actually a copy chat, that type of thing. So I have a signature move in terms of when within 2 business days, I will message them, and I will give them, number one, context. We met at this LinkedIn local event in Toronto. Number two, I give gratitude. I was really grateful for a chat on such and such topic, or I saw you speak, or we talked about this. I was impressed by this. Number three, I go for the ask. What is the ask? I want to share this article with you. I want to connect you to this person I know. I want to ask you a question about this. I want to, I invite you to be on my LinkedIn show. What exactly is the ask? And the number four is to be concise. Super, super concise, to the point. People don't have time to read through your entire story of your life and what you've been through. Just get to the point and offer that gratitude. And that starts a connection really, really well for me. So that's a signature move that I always try to help people do. And I say, do it within 2 business days. Don't wait. Even if you do wait, it's okay. But ideally, within 2 business days of having met someone at an event, that to me is a really big piece. Then the other big tip I'll give you is that when it comes to online engagement, when I post a live stream or a video on my pages and people engage, you got to engage back. Like it's like someone saying, "Hey, I think that's really important because," and then nothing, crickets. Like, you have to say something. So I always engage just about, like, the only time I haven't. I mean, I'm pretty good about this, but unless I have a post that goes ridiculously viral, and I've had a few of those doozies. But generally speaking, I'll reply to every single comment that someone gives me. And on top of that, for many of the comments, particularly if they're really rich discussions, I'll reach out with an inbound message privately. Hey, that was really great. Thank you so much for that. Really appreciate that. And so that's another thing I do to really do well with the connections. And the last thing I'll give you, the third little tip in terms of how I engage people, it's not just about text anymore. Voice, video. Once in a while, I'll throw in a voice message to hear my voice and hey, it's Bobby, how are you, right? Or I'll even do a video, just 30 seconds. Hey, thanks for connecting. Really appreciate that. And that type of stuff amplifies the connection with somebody 100 times.
Yeah, so true. And I guess it's one of those things, get into the consistency of being consistent, isn't it? And often people will start doing something and they don't do it frequently enough to be able to identify, look, this is working, or hang on, can I tweak this? Can I tweak the message slightly? That will get a little bit more engagement. And there's definite merit in that, because I remember working with someone who was very much, on LinkedIn, and we crafted some typical scripts that we would use, but in our own voice. And I got a lot of feedback from people to say, look, I've had a lot of contact from people that have just connected with me, but yours felt that was different. It stood out. It felt really friendly. So I was really curious, and of course the conversation that we had, I wasn't, hey, buy my product. It was a real, I wanted to get to know them, and they said it was refreshing. And I think one of the things that you said, when you do show up like that, it will stand out, because a lot of people they're either doing nothing, or they're really spamming people, aren't they? And it's like, buy my product.
Right.
A huge turn off. Are you starting to use, the messaging, like you would say, take the conversation from the face-to-face online, then take that into the DMs and the nice message, the follow-up, because then you get them into that Zoom call, or maybe if you've got an opportunity to face-to-face. Would you say that a lot of people leave that whole kind of process, like they connect on LinkedIn and then they never follow up, and they're thinking, well, why doesn't anyone ever contact me? Well, you haven't really followed up.
And one of the things I teach in my networking talks that I do around the world is there's a spectrum, right? So there's you meet them live, the video is kind of throwing me out because it's backwards. So you meet them live at an event, right? And so you meet them at an event. So that's meeting them live. Then you move them over to online. So now you connect on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, wherever you are. Then you send messages back and forth, and then eventually you want to get them to that coffee. Now what happens is that at every one of those 3 stages, people screw up. So you meet them at a live event, first time. Is there follow-up? No. You have the card? Did you do something? No. So right away, that's the first problem. The second one is, okay, now we're connected on LinkedIn. Now what do? Do you engage them? Do you send them content? Do you try to have conversation with them? Are they engaging with you in your content? Are you engaging in their content? No. Okay, that's another problem. Third part, okay, now have we started a conversation through DMs to get to a point where we can meet live in person or have a Zoom call? No. Okay. Well, then the challenge with most people is that they don't do something at each of those three different aspects of what I call it's the in real life and social media spectrum. You can enter any one of those 3 points, but you have to move forward and follow up to get to that next stage in that relationship. Because ideally, what you want to do is you want to build a relationship, you want to build value, and get to the point where you
Yes.
have that conversation. Now, you can't have a conversation with everybody, but
Mm.
ideally, with conversations, you start to realize the ones you want to have conversations with and who you want to engage with, because it's going to add value to both you and the other person.
Yeah. One of the things that I think I've learned over the years too, and I'm sure this is something that you reinforce with the clients and the people that you speak with, and two, of course, is that relationship building takes time, but it
Yeah.
is worth it,
Mhm.
because even though you may meet someone and nothing happens till months down the track, they could possibly be one of your high level clients or recommend you to one of their high level clients. You just don't know. And I think people don't take, because somehow there's this disconnection that, oh, it's online, but you can build and develop solid relationships with people
Sure.
online and open up to communities you would never have had an opportunity to do if you were only looking, well, face to face, and not really connecting and developing that relationship online.
Yeah,
Would you
and
say
the
that's
thing to keep in mind is that every person is a bridge to someone or something else. You have
fair?
no idea whether this person is connected to the person or the company that you want to be part of, and
Yes.
that's a huge thing. And social media has amplified our ability and our reach again 1,000 times. So now instead of having 100 bridges, you now have access to tens of thousands of bridges to all these people, and you never know. I mean, you and I met on social media. Now here we are talking live across the world, 16
Yes.
hours apart. That's amazing.
Yeah, yeah. And I found you from the content that you were sharing. I thought,
Right.
oh, need to get Bobby on the show. I'm sure, as you are, and you are, I knew as soon as I saw your profile that you would add immense value. Now, one of the things that I love about your story, and you mentioned this, and this happens so often, is you got a speaking event. And you weren't doing so purposefully. It was kind of like by accident, because it was something you shared. Someone saw and said, "Hey, can we hire you to speak?" Now, of course, you do it far more intentionally, and you
Yeah.
help clients to be able to do the same. Let's talk about some of the must-do speaker tips to help people build that side hustle as a professional speaker. What are some things that we need to know?
Sure. So when I let me focus on what people are doing wrong. Okay.
Mm.
So there's so many people. So there are many reasons. First off, I think everyone should be speaking. And if we take it back to thought leadership, and let me just talk a bit about thought leadership for a second. So in terms of thought leadership, I define it with three things. Every single thought leader, from Oprah to Gary Vaynerchuk, Tony Robbins, Bernie Brown, there are three things they're all doing to build thought leadership. Number one, they're building deep and broad relationships. So they have deep connections and broad connections. They're
Mm.
working on that. Number two, they're always generating new ideas and content. Oprah's writing a book, and Gary Vaynerchuk's doing a video, and Bernie Brown's doing some research. But they're always creating ideas and content around what their expertise is. And then number three, they're always working on their speaking, their writing. They're always writing, they're always speaking, they're always writing, they're always speaking. So those three things are going to build thought leadership for you. If you want to become a thought leader, personal brand in shoemaking or nanotechnology or cybersecurity, whatever it might be, you have to be doing those three things. And the
Mm.
more you do those three things, the bigger and better and more quickly your thought leadership brand is going to build. So that's an important piece. Now, if we move to speaking, so I believe everyone should be speaking, because if you're in corporate, you now have experiences and stories that you can share with the world that will help your fellow employees as well as people in the industry or as well as people around the world. If you've been working on a business and you built a 6, 7, 8 figure business, you have insights that you can share with the world. You can talk about your product and even sell your business. Or if you've done something really interesting, or if you're a coach, or if you have a book, you have things you can talk about that's going to add value to the world. So I think everyone should be a speaker. And here's where the problem lies. The problem lies in how to actually do this. So the biggest challenge I've seen is most people who have expertise or have experience or have really, really, good stories to tell, they don't know how to package it in a proper speaker story and speaker brand. And they can't figure out how to make that resonate with people. So that's the first thing I struggle with. The second thing I struggle with is what kind of topics will resonate. Often people come to me with 2 or 3 of their topics they want to do, and they make no sense, or they don't gel, or they're not aligned with their brand. And I'm like, this is not going to get attention. You're not going to be able to book a gig with this type of thing. You need to have it more refined and make it more clear. And the third thing that people struggle with when it comes to building a speaking business or building side hustles for speaking is the approach. How do you get out there and pitch, attract, negotiate opportunities for more speaking? Most people don't know where to start. And again, it starts by having a clear speaker story and brand. It comes with having a clear topics and why they're beneficial to the people you're pitching to. And then number 3, having clear pitch materials. So pitch materials like things like, what is your subject line, your email? Do you have a sell sheet? Do you have a video reel? Do you have a website? And what do you actually say in your messaging to get people's attention?
Yeah, I love that. And, once people are clear on that, I'd imagine too that they've got their website, a lot of information is there and accessible for people, because as event coordinators or people that are looking for potential speakers, I'd imagine a lot of them now, and correct me if I'm wrong, do research before they even approach you now, to see what content are they sharing? Is it consistent across a number of different platforms? Has anything changed in that area that we need to be aware of, that people need to be aware of when it comes to positioning themselves in front of, associations, event coordinators and such like that?
Well, I mean, you kind of hit the jackpot with everyone's going to Google you, right?
Yeah.
But what they're really going to do is you're going to find out, is there any content about you? So there's 2 things that are really important, especially now. One is testimonials. It's not that hard to get testimonials, but a lot of people don't take the time to do that. You have a nice LinkedIn profile, but are other people talking about who you are and how great you are? Because third-party assessments of who you are and how good you are invaluable. So that's the one thing. The second thing is the power of video and live stream. So if you're going to be a speaker about a topic, and you want to talk about the stuff, you want to build a thought leadership brand, and there's nothing of you speaking anywhere, that's a problem.
Yes.
So, you got to be out there speaking, doing panels, whatever it might be, but also create some video, create some live streams to get people to see how you talk. People right now are watching me, they're seeing how I talk, and like, wow, it's 10 o'clock at night and he's super, super engaged and super enthusiastic. Isn't he tired? Yeah, maybe I am. But you know what? I'm enthusiastic because I love to, and people see my personality. And so I think you want to make sure you're leveraging videos and live stream and putting that stuff out there. And it's mind-boggling how few people do this, including speakers. There are speakers out there who are too shy or too fearful of putting video content out there. Like, you can train yourself to do this. Only 1% of all LinkedIn users are creating content. Of that, only 1% of those content creators are doing video content. So we're talking like, a 600 million down to 6 million, down to like, 60,000 people are doing video content. Like, there's a huge opportunity for you to grow yourself and make yourself, known to people. When people, event planners, everyone looks at you, they say, wow, look at those great videos of this guy. I want his energy or her energy on stage.
Yeah, so true, Bobby. I mean, I often, one of the things that I do is help people get their podcasts, and they think audio podcasts, but now there's a whole module in there about live streaming.
Yes.
Because you need to be on video, and you know what? The first live stream, you'll there'll be things that you do that you but you know what? Again and again and again,
Just
and
start.
sometimes I think often too, when you have an appreciation of someone when you see them, natural, and they may laugh or something, because it's often how they react and respond with a guest or whatever that really brings the person behind that expert or whatever. And I think it's all about relationships. And it's look, do it now. And because as you continue to do that, you'll get more and more confident till all of a sudden you realize, hey, I'm doing that. And, I didn't procrastinate for half an hour before I pressed the go live button kind of thing. It's just one of those things, isn't it?
And one thing I'd like to add about speaking is that, I mentioned the 3 aspects of thought leadership, right? So networking, idea generation, and working on your speaking and writing. When you speak, and whether you go on a panel or you make a video, anything to do with speaking, it covers all 3, because you're already writing stuff to plan your speech or plan your video. You're then doing the speaking, which is on the video or on the panel. Number 2, idea generation content. You're sharing your ideas, you're creating content, you're creating tips, and then you're networking, because you're basically going to events to speak, to network with people, and that content as a speaker will generate leads, because people want to reach out to you and talk to you. So speaking is the best way to do all three aspects of building a thought leadership personal brand.
Yeah, so is. I recently went to a LinkedIn Live event in Melbourne here where I'm based, Bobby. And one of the things that I noticed, and I'm sharing this because exactly what you were saying, sometimes you'll go to an event and you can cover a number of those things off. You know what people were doing, and I'm sure you do this too. They took their iPhone with them and sometimes a selfie stick, and they asked key questions and they interviewed other people who were there at the event. Then they use those videos and uploaded them to LinkedIn, tagged those people, and then all of a sudden this conversation was going because, people go, oh, they love seeing themselves. You've got valuable content that you're sharing, and it's a community of people who are liking, sharing, and commenting.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I think that's a great way to do it. And I do it all the time when I go to LinkedIn Live events. I will take the camera. Hey, let's do a quick 2-minute video. It's amazing because when you tag people and they love it, they love the attention and it creates a conversation. I think it's so easy to have some really easy content. All you gotta do is ask.
Yeah.
Hey, can we do a quick 2-minute video? Just ask people.
Yeah, and that's one thing. You held up your phone there. We have recording studios in our fingertips, carrying around a bag in our pocket. You don't need a lot of expensive equipment. Sure, you might get a lapel mic or something like that, but really, and that's sometimes what people stops them. Oh, I don't have expensive equipment and stuff. You don't need to, do you? You really just need your smartphone and off you go.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the first level is just use the phone. Second level is a good mic, good lighting, and then after that, you can go even more advanced. But that's all you need, right?
Yeah. Fantastic. And you know what? As Bobby said, get started, get out there, start to build the personal brand across, the threes. I love the power of three as well. That's so very important. And it is late for you. I know that we've just covered so much awesome golden nuggets there for people, Bobby. Share with people, how can they connect with you? How can they find out more? How can they work with you? All of that good stuff.
Sure. So, I mean, my two main websites are rayalan.com, which is my speaking, training, coaching company. Number two is dypb.ca, which is my personal branding company and startup that I'm working on. And of course, you can follow my LinkedIn company page. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I have the same handle, to Rayhan Bobby, across all the platforms. And you can just and message me anytime or comment on my stuff, and you can see what I'm up to. And again, remember, I answer all questions. I engage all comments. So if you comment, I will engage.
Yeah. What I love about, the online platform too, is that if you're not sure about something, go and find someone who is doing it really well, such as you, Bobby. Watch what they do. Model it. I mean, obviously don't copy what they're doing, but, use it in your own environment with your content, but sometimes model that in your own environment, in your own industry. And that will give you a really good, depiction of how to start leveraging it and just getting out there and doing that, getting consistent. And then soon you'll build a profile, as Bobby has, across different platforms, and then people will reach out.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point. One of my key success factors, I would say, is modeling myself after people that I really was impressed by. So, like, back in the day in Twitter, I saw a tweet chat by Lolly Daskell called "Lead from Within." I was like, this is really interesting. Let me start my own, my own tweet chat. And so I started doing that. Right. Yeah. I saw people doing. I saw Gary Vaynerchuk do Ask Gary Vee shows. Like, you know what? I want to do a show where I just answer questions. And so you learn from people across all the platforms what they're doing, and you just try to take best practices and feed that into yourself. It's a fantastic way to grow yourself.
Yeah. What I love about that what Gary does with the Ask Gary V, and what you're doing, answering questions. How often what do I need to write about? Ask your community, add value to what they're saying. You don't need to come up with the topics. They'll tell you what they need. And as you continue to add value to that, they will come, more and more out to say, look, now I'm stuck in this area. So often we just follow the breadcrumbs. Where do I need to add more value? Where does my audience need the most expertise that I can share? And from there, you're building this profile as someone who's that go-to in that particular area. So love that. Thank you once again for coming on the show. Brilliant. I've loved connecting. Of course, we are streaming live, and so I'll be tagging Bobby in the videos here. So please reach out on all the channels and go and stalk him. But do it nicely. Go and reach out and let him know that you heard about him. If you haven't already, I'm sure everybody who's watching or listening to this has already heard about you, Bobby, because of the profile that you've been building. But if you haven't, maybe that one person, reach out and let Bobby know that you heard about him through this show. All right, Bobby, all the very best. And thanks once again.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Emery. That was great.